Hello everyone, I hope you enjoyed the little intro montage. And before I get started with this showcase, I'm actually getting to the end of the list. And I gotta say, I'm open to just keep going. Now, channel was a lot smaller back then when I opened the submissions. And so it's pretty much guaranteed that I won't get to every submission. I won't make a showcase on everything I get, basically. Unless it's really quiet somehow, but like I definitely going forward cannot guarantee I will showcase every submission. But yeah, now would be a great time to go into the comments and tell me what you'd like to see change in terms of the format or whatever you'd like to see out of, let's say, a season 2, if we can call it that, of showcases. But yeah, anyway, without further ado, this is the Budweiser ship sent in by Destroyer. That's right, Budweiser is the name of the ship, and the username of the person who sent this in is Destroyer. This ship is simple yet solid. I usually start with, the downsides. It's gonna be a really short list, and if anything, it might just be how plain this thing is, but you know what? I still like the look, and I really like how they did the bridge on this thing. It's really simple, but it works. It's a great way, I think, to put a bridge on a ship without, it getting out of hand and looking too big or goofy or whatever. I think it just works. But yeah, the first downside I would say is that the ship is a little plain. The anchor right on the nose might be a little bit weird, but there's very few mistakes with this, honestly. One thing I'm gonna call out, though, that is definitely a problem, is the number of lamb nodes on this thing. Oh my gosh, this is a pretty powerful lambs, but these 5 nodes are the only nodes I could find on the entire vehicle. That is just not enough. And if you're gonna pour that many resources into a lambs, please have more nodes. Like, I know I don't put a lot on my own hover tanks, but I do put more than 5. It's just not enough. And while we're at it, I'm gonna have an opportunity, I guess, to clarify something from the previous showcase, which a lot of people commented on, and that is the EMP. And I think I wasn't very clear. Essentially, here we have missiles which have EMP on them. And essentially my point, and that also applies for the last showcase, is that the sweet spot for EMP is about 4,000 to 7,000, roughly. Essentially enough to break one surge protector or one heavy armor beam per blast. More than that is not necessarily a mistake, but it can backfire on you, or at least it could in the past, because surge protectors, when a surge went through them in the past, they would reduce the entire surge by 90%. Even if it only took, let's say, well, it took 2,500 EMP to kill the surge protector. Now they've been buffed. But let's say you had 1,000,000 EMP and it would go through one surge protector, you would be down to 100,000 EMP. And that is the problem. And I'm not sure if it still works that way. It's testable. I find EMP is very unpredictable, so I don't like making it my main damage source. Anyway, I don't even like using it. I find it kind of anticlimactic, but basically 4,000 to 7,000 is a good spot for EMP. Less than that, now that is more like mistake territory, and these missiles do have less than that by quite a bit. It's 1,200, 1,250 to be exact, and it's fine. It can work, and in some cases it's air quotes better because EMP tries not to waste. So if you have a lot of EMP it will actually kind of prefer going for heavy armor and surge protectors rather than really small and fragile components. But it's EMP is just very hit or miss in general. And lower amounts are generally worse, because the way EMP works is that EMP reduction is a flat number. If it has to go through something that reduces EMP, it's a flat number. So if you, I don't know, if you deal a lot of small bursts of 500 EMP, well, 5 blocks of wood and it's gone. Totally. While if you have, let's say, 1,000 or 10,000, then those 5 blocks of wood barely register. So that's the thing about EMP. Now, some of those missiles are actually quite a bit better. Like, that's 2,500. That's getting decent. It's still not quite enough to break a surge protector. This is enough to break a surge protector, these torpedoes. But yeah, that's about as far as I can go for mistakes. This thing is clean. It's simple, but clean. Speaking of EMP, this thing's EMP protection is great. Essentially, EMP likes surge protectors, and so if you put your surge protectors on extremities and away from your sensitive components, or at least in the way from a potential point of impact to your sensitive components instead of right next to them, usually that's the best case scenario. And this thing just has its surge protectors spread out everywhere around corners and inside the armor and not next to sensitive components, which is great. This is ideal. This is how you do EMP protection. And it's not spammed, but you know, there's a good amount. The armor scheme just in general is really good. If we look, I mean, it's kind of expensive and it's a bit heavier on alloy than you might need, but this thing is mostly passive buoyancy, which is also, I recommend. Very good idea. That way, if your boat gets hit a lot, damaged a lot, it doesn't sink because it has holes in its compartment. So yeah, thick armor. And then on the inside, you have an air gap furthest in, and it's heavy armor, so it's not going to break quickly if it gets hit by heat or HESH fragments. It's going to have higher AP than the higher armor, than the AP of HESH fragments generated by hitting metal and alloy. So very good. It uses a fairly simple, where is it? Turbo engine, which has pretty good stats for a turbo engine, and it's actually prioritized, which is really good. If you look here, you've got this one, it has a high priority, and then you have a less efficient backup injector engine near the back that is not prioritized because, well, it's less efficient, which is great. This is just good design. The LAMS is fine except for the lack of nodes, really. And yeah, I don't want to make this super short, but like, this is just clean and simple. You might say it's a little unoriginal, but boy, does it work. It's just what you need to do sometimes. Not overcomplicate things, and just go with solid stuff. Very basic, but solid stuff. So this thing could be, you know, more decorated, and, you know, it would probably help. This anchor could probably be in a spot that makes more sense. This, I think, is just something that they forgot because they actually covered up the other vertical props. There aren't a ton of vertical props, by the way. It's just mostly enough. In terms of roll control, though, it's a bit iffy. This thing does roll a little bit in turns. This is too close to the center, essentially, to be very effective roll control. But yeah, strong armor, pretty decent missiles. Now, if the enemy has way overkill radar decoys, although, this has signal processors, so it's unlikely to happen. But if there's, if you're facing something with overkill radar decoys or significant missile defenses, well, you're kind of SOL in this case. You're out of luck. Totally out of luck. This thing is purely missiles and a handful of torpedoes. They're HE torpedoes, which, HE is good on torpedoes because the deeper the torpedo goes, the more HE damage it does. There's actually a multiplier. Against ships, it's not the ideal thing because they're not very deep in the water, but you still get a bonus. So, yeah, well done to Destroyer. This is simple, clean, solid build. Honestly, the Budweiser. And you could probably make a whole fleet pretty quickly with this aesthetic. It's, you're not spending forever on mimics or anything. And so it wouldn't take you forever. It would be effective. And it would still look good. Not necessarily, blow you out of the water. Amazing, super detailed looking. But yeah, this is how you make a fleet in a short amount of time without spending ages on it, in my opinion, at least. So I hope you enjoyed. That's going to be it for the Budweiser ship, I guess. There's no class. A lot of people add classes to their ship names or something. Missile cruiser, I guess. And thanks again to Destroyer for sending this in for a showcase. And yeah, don't forget to put your ideas for the next season of showcases in the comments. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.